Hey guys, welcome back to another Thailand story. Today, I'd like to share with you a story that was submitted by a subscriber to the channel. It's a story of love, loss, and unexpected heroism set against the sultry backdrop of Pattaya, Thailand. So sit back, and let me take you on a journey that spans continents and delves into the depths of the human heart. Martin had always been good with numbers. At 42, he was a successful accountant in Liverpool, known for his meticulous attention to detail and his ability to spot financial discrepancies from a mile away. But when it came to matters of the heart, Martin was woefully inept. His last relationship had ended 3 years ago, leaving him lonely and yearning for companionship. It was a dreary Tuesday in November when Martin stumbled upon a travel website showcasing the sunny beaches of Pattaya, Thailand. The images of crystal-clear waters, palm trees, and smiling faces seemed to mock the gray skies outside his office window. On impulse, he booked a 2-week vacation for the following month. Little did he know that this decision would change his life forever. Martin arrived in Pattaya on a sweltering December afternoon. The humid air hit him like a wall as he stepped out of the air-conditioned airport. He hailed a taxi, clutching his bag containing 10,000 pounds in traveler's checks and several credit cards. He had saved for months for this trip, determined to treat himself to some luxury after years of frugal living. The taxi wound its way through the bustling streets of Pattaya, and Martin's eyes widened at the sights. Neon signs advertised bars and massage parlors, while street vendors hawked everything from grilled meats to counterfeit watches. The energy of the city was palpable, exciting, and a little overwhelming for the reserved accountant. His hotel, the Royal Pattaya Resort, was a gleaming high-rise overlooking the beach. As he checked in, Martin couldn't help but notice the number of Western men accompanied by young Thai women. He felt a pang of envy, wondering if he too might find companionship during his stay. That first night, Martin ventured out onto Walking Street, the infamous heart of Pattaya's nightlife. The pulsing music, flashing lights, and crowds of people were a sensory overload. He found himself drawn to a bar called Paradise Found, its name seeming like a promise of the adventure he sought. Inside, the air was thick with cigarette smoke and the scent of perfume. Martin took a seat at the bar, ordering a beer and trying to look nonchalant. That's when he met Nock. Nock was petite, with almond-shaped eyes and a laugh that seemed to tinkle like bells. She sidled up to Martin, placing a hand on his arm. "Hello, handsome man," she said, her English accented but clear. "You buy me drink?" Martin, flattered by the attention, readily agreed. One drink turned into several, and soon he was pouring out his life story to Nock. She listened attentively, her eyes wide with sympathy as he talked about his loneliness back home. "You no worry," Nock said, squeezing his hand. "You in paradise now. I take care of you." Those words were like a balm to Martin's lonely heart. When Nock suggested they leave the bar together, he didn't hesitate. They ended up in his hotel room, where Nock proved to be a passionate and attentive lover. As they lay together afterward, Martin felt a connection he hadn't experienced in years. The next morning, Martin awoke to find Nock still beside him. She suggested they spend the day together, showing him the real Pattaya. Enchanted by her smile and eager to deepen their connection, Martin agreed. Nock took him to a local market, expertly haggling with vendors in rapid-fire Thai. She bought him exotic fruits to try and regaled him with stories about local customs. When they passed a gold shop, Nock's eyes lingered on a delicate necklace in the window. "It's beautiful," Martin said, noticing her interest. Nock sighed. "Yes, but too expensive. Maybe one day I save enough." Without thinking, Martin stepped into the shop and bought the necklace. It cost 15,000 baht, about 350 pounds. But the joy on Nock's face seemed worth every baht. She hugged him tightly, calling him her kind man. Over the next few days, Martin fell into a blissful routine with Nock. They spent their days exploring Pattaya and their nights in passionate embraces. Martin felt rejuvenated, convinced he had found something special. A week into his trip, Nock received a tearful phone call. Her younger brother had been in a motorcycle accident and needed surgery. The cost was 100,000 baht, about 2,300 pounds, more than her family could afford. "I don't know what to do," Knock sobbed into Martin's chest. He could lose his leg. Martin, caught up in the drama and eager to be the hero, didn't hesitate. He went to the bank and withdrew the money from his traveler's checks. Knock's gratitude was effusive, and that night, she showed her appreciation in ways that left Martin breathless. The requests for money became more frequent after that. There was always a crisis, an ill relative, an overdue rent payment, a business opportunity that needed investment. Martin, blinded by what he thought was love, kept reaching for his wallet. He even began to transfer money from his savings account back home. 2 days before his scheduled departure, Knock dropped a bombshell. She was pregnant. Martin was shocked, but also elated. This was his chance at the family he'd always wanted. "But how can we be together?" Knock asked, tears in her eyes. "You go back to England. I stay here." Martin made a decision then and there. He would stay in Thailand, start a new life with Knock. All he needed to do was go back to England, settle his affairs, and return. He promised Knock he'd be back within a month. "You need money to start new life," Knock said. "My cousin, he know good investment. Triple your money in 1 month." It seemed too good to be true, but Martin was riding high on dreams of his new life. He agreed to meet Knock's cousin, a smooth-talking man named Chai. Chai explained about a shipment of electronics coming from China, guaranteed to sell for huge profits. All he needed was an investor. Martin emptied his remaining traveler's checks and maxed out his credit cards, handing over £15,000 to Chai. He was promised triple that amount upon his return. At the airport, Knock kissed him passionately. "I wait for you," she promised. "We start beautiful life together." Back in Liverpool, Martin was on cloud 9. He put in his notice at work and began selling his possessions. His friends were skeptical about his whirlwind romance, but Martin dismissed their concerns. They just didn't understand the depth of his connection with Knock. A week before he was due to return to Thailand, Martin tried to call Knock. Her phone was disconnected. Emails bounced back. Panic set in. He reached out to the hotel in Pattaya, asking them to check on her. They reported that no one by that name had ever worked or stayed there. Reality came crashing down on Martin. He had been scammed, taken for every penny he had. His job, his savings, his heart, all had been sacrificed for a beautiful illusion. Desperate and humiliated, Martin knew he couldn't stay in Liverpool. Despite everything, Thailand still called to him. He scraped together enough money for a one-way ticket to Pattaya, determined to confront Knock and Chai, to understand how they could have deceived him so thoroughly. Martin arrived in Pattaya a changed man. Gone was the wide-eyed tourist. In his place was a man driven by anger and a need for answers. He started at Paradise Found, but the staff claimed never to have heard of Knock. The gold shop where he'd bought the necklace didn't remember the transaction. It was as if the past 2 weeks had been a dream. Desperate for a friendly face, Martin found himself drawn to a quiet bar off the main strip. That's where he met Leck. Leck was different from Knock, tall, sophisticated, with excellent English. She listened sympathetically to Martin's story, her eyes filled with compassion. "I'm so sorry this happened to you," Leck said, squeezing his hand. "Unfortunately, it's not uncommon, but not all Thai people are like that. Let me help you." Over the next few days, Leck became Martin's guide and confidant. She helped him file a police report, though she warned him not to expect much. She showed him a different side of Pattaya, quiet temples, local restaurants untouched by tourism. Martin found himself starting to hope again. Leck, it turned out, worked for a local business that exported Thai handicrafts. "We're always looking for investors," she mentioned casually one evening. "The profits are not as dramatic as what Chai promised, but they're steady and legitimate." Martin was intrigued but wary. Leck sensed his hesitation and backed off, telling him to take his time and think about it. Her understanding only made Martin trust her more. Weeks passed, and Martin's funds were running low. He knew he'd have to return to England soon, face the mess he'd left behind. The thought filled him with dread. That's when Leck introduced him to her brother, Somporn. Somporn owned an import-export business and was looking for a partner with financial acumen. The business was legitimate, with proper licenses and a track record of steady growth. "I've seen how meticulous you are with numbers," Leck said. "You could really help expand the business, and it would give you a reason to stay in Thailand." The offer was tempting. Martin spent days going over the company's books, impressed by their orderliness. This wasn't like Chai's vague promises. Everything was documented and verifiable. In the end, Martin agreed to invest his last £5,000 into the business. Leck helped him secure a work permit, and for the first time since the disaster with Knock, Martin felt like he had a purpose. Months passed, and the business thrived. Martin's financial expertise helped streamline operations, increasing profits. He and Leck grew closer, their relationship deepening into something that felt real and solid. 1 year after his ill-fated first trip to Pattaya, Martin found himself sitting on the beach, watching the sunset with Leck. She turned to him, her eyes serious. "There's something I need to tell you," she said. Martin felt a flutter of panic, memories of Knock's deceptions flashing through his mind. But what Leck said next stunned him. "I knew Knock," she confessed. "Not personally, but I knew of her and Chai. They're part of a gang that targets lonely foreigners. When I met you, I knew you'd been one of their victims." Martin felt as if the ground had dropped out from under him. "You knew? All this time?" Leck nodded, her eyes filling with tears. "At first, I just wanted to help. But then I got to know you, and I fell in love. I was afraid if I told you the truth, you'd never trust me." Martin's mind reeled. He thought of the business, the work permit, the life he'd built over the past year. "Was any of it real?" he asked. "All of it," Leck said firmly. "The business, my feelings for you, it's all genuine. I've spent this year trying to show you that not everyone in Thailand is out to scam you, that real connections are possible." Martin stood up, needing space to think. He walked along the beach, the waves lapping at his feet. He thought about the man he'd been a year ago. Naive, desperate for connection, an easy mark. He thought about the pain of Knock's betrayal, the humiliation, the lessons learned. Then he thought about the past year with Leck, the laughter, the quiet moments, the gradual rebuilding of his confidence. She had never pressured him, never asked for money. She had given him space to heal, to find his footing in a foreign land. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Martin made his decision. He walked back to where Leck sat, anxiety written across her face. "I once came to Pattaya looking for a fantasy," he said, sitting beside her. "What I found was pain, then healing, and now I think I found something real." Leck's eyes widened with hope. "Can you forgive me for not telling you sooner?" Martin took her hand, feeling the warmth of it in his. "I think," he said slowly, "that sometimes the longest journeys lead us exactly where we need to be." As they sat together on the beach, the lights of Pattaya twinkling to life behind them, Martin marveled at the twists and turns of fate. He had come to Thailand as an accountant and a victim. He would stay as a businessman and a partner. The ledger of his heart, once so unbalanced, was finally moving into the black.